Today, we're gonna bust some myths about the perfect breastfeeding diet. Hey guys, welcome back to At the Table. Sydney here, and I'm joined today by Dr. April Fogleman, who is one of our specialists at NC State. She is a specialist and she's a professor, right? So what do you teach at NC State?
I teach classes on nutrition, so maternal and infant nutrition, public health nutrition, intro to nutrition.
Awesome.
All things nutrition.
So you're in the nutrition department. Perfect.
Yeah.
And you're a lactation consultant, and you're also a registered dietitian as well. So she's got lots of credentials behind her name, don't you? So she is very, very well versed in our topic today, which is going to be all about breastfeeding. There's a lot of information out there. I think good information, some can be confusing information, a lot of myths out there.
A lot of myths.
So hopefully we're going to touch on several of those today, and we do have 2 recipes that are going to be really great to flow with making sure mom is getting the nutrients she needs and also giving nutrients to baby even through that milk. So what we'll do is I'll start here with our first recipe, and April's got another recipe over there that she'll start on in just a little bit. What I'm starting with here is just, these are going to be little fish foil packets. So you can use any fish here. We're using salmon, which we'll talk a little bit about in a little bit about why we chose salmon over here. And then we've got a couple different veggies that we're going to be making. So I will start with chopping up our vegetables. You can use any veggies that you like here. Today we have just things that are in season. So I've got some zucchini and squash, of course, that are very affordable right now. And then I also have some carrots. I just got a big bag of carrots, a bell pepper, and some onions. So we're going to put all of those in our packet with our fish and bake it in the oven. So I'm going to start chopping up our veggies and just kind of getting these into bite-sized pieces, which is what I prefer. You can do, whatever. You could do slices, dice it up even smaller than what I'm going to do. Total preference here. So while I'm doing this, I want April to kind of go into, there's a lot of information out there in terms of breastfeeding versus formula feeding, and kind of if a mom has the choice to choose one, which one would be best, and kind of why? What is the reason for that?
Okay. So the recommendation from the World Health Organization and the American Academy of Pediatrics is to breastfeed your baby until they're at least 2 years of age. The World Health Organization has always recommended that, or for a while, and then the American Academy of Pediatrics recently updated their recommendations to say breastfeed for 2 years and beyond. So that would be exclusively nursing for 6 months, and that means no other food or water for the first 6 months of life, and then at 6 months introducing complementary foods. But to answer your question, Sydney, about what is, what's best, so breastfeeding is the best option for mom and baby in terms of health because it gives the baby nutrients, of course, all the nutrients needed to survive, but in addition to that, immunoglobulins, antibodies, antiviral factors. It's very specifically tailored to the baby for growth and development. And then for the mother, it lowers risk of postpartum hemorrhage, breast cancer, ovarian cancer, and helps with perinatal mood disorders. And there are other benefits as well. However, the really hard thing is that a lot of times our society isn't structured to support mothers and babies with breastfeeding the best that they can. So while it is the best choice, health-wise, it's not always feasible. And that really has to do with just our society and employers, health departments, healthcare providers, family members, friends, supporting the breastfeeding diet.
And I kind of want to piggyback off of that. When you say health, we also have to consider mental health as well. And kind of that's exactly what you're talking about, is when we have that support in your workplace, in your home, in your friends and family, and you're set up for that support, it can help you mentally handle the load, because breastfeeding can be a lot, right? I mean, in terms of the demand for your child and taking care of yourself while taking care of this baby, mentally, I think sometimes it can be a lot for mom. So when you have that support in all areas of your life, it just makes it a lot easier. What do you think? We'll take a quick break, and then we'll jump right back in and kind of finish making our vegetables for our salmon packet here, and we'll even get started on our energy bites that April is going to get making.
Most aging adults want to stay in their homes as long as possible. And as your loved ones get older, you want to support them, even when you can't be there. Star is proud to offer Star Alert. This new system is now mobile and has GPS compatibility, so your loved ones can live their lives and you can have peace of mind, knowing they can get the help they need with just the simple push of a button. The new Star Alert also offers automatic fall detection, so help will be alerted even if they can't press the button. Call and ask about Star Alert today.
Hey guys, welcome back. So I've got our zucchini and squash cut up. I'm just going to start working on our carrots now. I'm cutting these kind of thin because zucchini and squash are going to be kind of more delicate. They're not as dense in terms of the vegetable makeup. So I want these to be a little bit thinner so they cook around the same time. So keep in mind, if you are doing a mix of vegetables, a mix of like hearty vegetables versus more of our, I guess, delicate, doesn't sound quite like the word, but softer vegetables maybe, then it's great to make sure that they're a little bit more similar texture-wise so that they'll cook around the same time. So I'm just gonna finish chopping these up, and to kind of continue on with some of our conversation that we were having before with April in terms of mental health. So if you are somebody who, you're a mom, you're a grandma, grandfather, friend, anybody who you might know somebody who's breastfeeding, you might have a family or friend who is hoping to breastfeed. Maybe they're pregnant now and they're hoping to breastfeed in the future. What are some things, April, that we could maybe touch on for them? What are some things they could do to help support that mom?
That's a great question. I think that they can acknowledge the desire of their loved one or their friend to breastfeed, and even if it isn't the choice that you had made or we had made in the past with children, that it can be something that you can support your loved one on in their journey by saying things like, "You're doing a great job. Can I bring you some salmon or some vegetables or some no-bake energy bites that we're going to make in a little bit?" So bringing them food, bringing them water, being there for them, telling them what a great job that they're doing. And also, I think recognizing when the mother needs a break, offering to help change the baby's diaper, holding the baby skin to skin. That means like having the baby's clothes off, and maybe having like the dad, for example, having his shirt off and having the baby skin to skin with the dad. Also, like walking with the baby if the baby's fussy. So all kinds of things that we can do to support the baby, but really recognizing that this is the choice that the mother wants to make, and doing what we can to support her and her choice, regardless of, views that others may have on the topic of breastfeeding.
Yes, so important. And I will also say that as a mom, it doesn't help when you ask what you can help with. Do you agree? Sometimes it's just easier, especially in those really early days, if you just pick something and that's what you're gonna, whether it's making food or whether it's making sure that a mom has water. Sometimes I felt like sometimes it would get overwhelming when everyone was like, well, what do you need me to do? What can I help with? And I've got so much on my mind at that time that it was difficult for me to pinpoint one thing.
So that's a really good point, and it made me think about this that I didn't say, which is sometimes the best thing we can do to support the mother is to just sit with her and keep her company.
Yes.
Because breastfeeding can be very isolating. You just, like, you're doing it all day long and you can get really just bored and, needing some adult interaction. So just being with them and sitting with them. And sometimes they may want you to take the baby, sometimes they might not. So assuming that you're going to go over to their house and hold the baby and get those newborn snuggles and smell their head and kiss them and everything, don't assume that, because the mom might actually want to keep holding the baby, but maybe you can sit there with the mom, watch TV, talk to her, ask her to tell you her birth story, things like that.
Yes, love that. Definitely great points. Okay, so kind of diving into baby. This is more for our moms who are breastfeeding or are hoping to breastfeed in the future. It still could kind of go off those who are supporting. What are some of those cues one thing that we have a lot is that, people are like, well, baby's hungry. Oh, that baby needs to go home and eat. Oh, sounds like you need to go feed your baby. What are maybe some hunger cues that would really be telling us if that baby is actually hungry, and then how to kind of handle some of that?
Yeah, so some of the ways that we can tell if a baby is hungry is if they start sucking on their hands, trying to find their hands, sucking on those or sucking on something. If they're rooting, where they're kind of bobbing their head back and forth, if you're holding a baby and they start bobbing their head, they're looking for the nipple. And if that nipple if it's not yours that they need, then you can pass the baby to the mom. And then, that's a sure sign. So when you see that, those are early hunger cues. Sometimes the baby will just be quiet and alert and awake and they'll be fine, but then you'll notice quickly that'll turn into these early hunger cues of rooting and sucking on their fingers or hand. And then eventually, if the baby's not fed during that time, then it'll turn into the late hunger cues, which crying is one of those. And if we wait until the late hunger cue of crying, then it can be harder to settle the baby down to get them to nurse well. In that case, then skin to skin, which I talked about earlier, would be a good idea. Sometimes the baby is just, needing a nap or something like that. So a good thing is to always try to kind of feed the baby first, make sure the baby's not hungry, because they are hungry all the time, it seems like, especially in the early days. Feeding on demand is important, so not scheduling feeds. In the newborn period, you might hear people say feed every 2 to 3 hours. That sometimes gets communicated or misinterpreted as we cannot feed more than 2 to 3 hours, but that's not true. So it's at least every 2 to 3 hours in that newborn period. Sometimes more frequently, sometimes they cluster feed, sometimes it's an all-day buffet. So making sure in the newborn period not to go really 2 to 3 hours, except if they've gained back their birth weight. If their weight gain is fine, then at night they could go a little bit longer stretch, but certainly not all night in the newborn period.
Yeah. We had some issues, just my little bit of my personal experiences where I have a very, very chill dude. So he I mean, I had to set my alarm to feed him because we were kind of the opposite end where he wasn't giving me as many cues. Maybe that was more after he was about a month old that he started just chilling. Like he just never acted super hungry. Earlier days, we absolutely had a lot of those rooting and things like that. So, you know, all babies are different, and it's definitely important to pay attention to kind of their habits, their behaviors. You will learn your baby, I think, with a little time. I feel like at first you might just be like, I don't know how they're gonna be, and you're really looking for some of those cues, and maybe you don't have them. So it doesn't hurt to have a 2-hour rule in your head in case you do have a little one who kind of the opposite, like my fella. So great points. We are going to go ahead and take another quick break, and then we will see you guys back in just 1 second.
Eastern North Carolina is a beautiful place where we gladly choose to call home, and we strive to provide the best communication services. STAR is committed to improving communications to all our service areas, because we want to improve the communities where we not only work, but also live. STAR Communications. We are neighbors serving neighbors.
All right, guys, so we have our veggies all chopped up. I went ahead and did our onion as well. As you can see, they're kind of uniform pieces. I did the best I can, a few bigger chunks here and there, but for the most part, pretty uniform. It will hopefully cook together very well. Also, when you're picking this, you could choose vegetables that you don't mind if they cook for a little bit longer. So something that you know is not going to get too mushy, that could work as well. But we are using salmon today, and salmon doesn't take super long to cook, so you want to be mindful of that. We're not using super hard veggies that are going to take a really long time. So have that. We are going to add a little bit of we're gonna make our own dressing actually to do this. So I'm gonna add, I'm going for kind of like an Asian flair here. I feel like that goes good with salmon. So I'm just gonna do some rice vinegar, kind of making my own vinaigrette. And I'm not measuring really here. It's about 2 ounces. And then I'm gonna add in a little bit of olive oil here. And I'll use what I've got because I should have put a little more in here. That's all right. And then I'm gonna add just a little bit of lemon juice, not much. We're gonna be adding a little bit of this too when we make our packets. And then for my seasonings, I picked a little rosemary and ginger. So I'm gonna put all of this in my vinaigrette. And then we are going to put it on top of our fish in our packets and roll our fish up. So, actually, I lied. We are gonna put this on our vegetables, and then we are gonna put that on top of our fish in our packet. This is ginger. So we've got rosemary, ginger, and that rice vinegar. And just shaking it up and a little lemon juice. And this is kind of like our little homemade vinaigrette. Ideally, you do a little bit more olive oil, like the same at least equal parts vinegar to oil, depending on how much of a zip you want. But this isn't really gonna be super strong anyways. It's not like it's gonna be cooking in it, so it'll kind of give it that flavor, but it won't be overpowering because we're not using a whole lot of this. So I'm just doing about 2 tablespoons of that. And then you can save that for a dressing later. And then I'll just stir this up, make sure it's coated, and then I'm just gonna start working on my fish. So I'm gonna put a piece of salmon in each of these little packets of foil. I've got 4 pieces here, and I'm gonna try to kind of divide up about 1/2 cup of the veggies on top of that fish. So it'll be my salmon, my veggies with that oil mixture, and then I might add a little bit of extra herbs. So I'll be working on that over here. While I'm doing that, April is gonna start on our energy bites, and this helps us to dive right into kind of why we chose these foods. So now we're thinking about mom who's breastfeeding and considering our supply, we're considering the nutrients that we want to make sure that's in our milk that we're including, and then of course getting enough calories. It's a big one, right? So what are those things that we want to think about when you are a mom and you're breastfeeding? We want to make sure we're getting enough of these certain things in.
Yeah, so I think that first of all, I want to say that the salmon is a really great choice because it has some really healthy fats in there, the omega-3 fats, polyunsaturated fats, and that is actually reflected in the milk. So the total amount of fat in the milk stays the same regardless of the amount of fat in the mother's diet, but the type of fat changes depending on the foods that the mother eats. So mothers who have more fish in their diet have more polyunsaturated fats in their diet, which is really healthy for the baby, more polyunsaturated fats in the milk, which is really healthy for the baby. So now what we're gonna do is make some no bake energy bites. They do have energy in them. So what they want me to do is they want me to make stuff while I talk, which is really hard for me to do, but I'm going to do the best job I can. So these are great, these no-bake energy bites, because they're easy to kind of put together. You can just mix it all together, and then you have it, you can freeze it, you can just eat them whenever you want to, but it's a good way to kind of keep your energy up, because calories and energy, they mean the same thing. Calories are energy. So first you do 1 cup of oatmeal, and then a half a cup of peanut butter. So you can just do a scoop here, and then you could kind of measure it, but you know what? I'm not going to do that because I don't want to dirty up that. Because, as a breastfeeding mom, it is not easy to just have time to clean dishes. So we're just going to estimate here how much peanut butter we need. And then if you want to, what could be a really good idea is to take some of this peanut butter, and you can take this chocolate and you can just kind of dip it in there and then eat it off the spoon. That's while you're cooking it. So you take a half a cup of these chocolate chips. So this I will measure out. And you can dump that in there like that. And then a third of cup of honey. So we have all of these cups over here.
Choose to use them or not. That's totally up to you.
Same thing with the honey.
You can measure with your heart.
How about that? That's a good heartfelt measurement right there. And the recipe calls for 1 cup of coconut flakes, but we will save those for the end because we're going to roll them up in those flakes. And then we'll do a half a cup of flaxseed and then a teaspoon of vanilla. So I can work on that while we take a break.
You don't have to move to have the home of the future. Star Communications is now offering all-in-one security and home control systems from Honeywell. Control lights, thermostat, locks, and your alarm all from one touchscreen or a tablet or smartphone. With Total Connect, you control your security system, home automation functions, and view live security video on your phone from anywhere. Sign up before August 31st and receive free basic installation, a savings of over $100. This is a limited time offer, so call now.
Hey guys, welcome back. So we have our salmon on our little foil packet, and then I sprinkled the salmon with just a little bit of our ground ginger and rosemary yet again. So we have a lot of those good herbs and spices in there. And then I just did the smallest little spritz of lemon juice as well. And then I topped my vegetable mixture that we had in our vinaigrette. So next, all I do is roll up our little packet here. And whenever you're placing this, you could place this, you could grill these, you could put it in the oven. I like to put them seam side up because this way nothing is going to drip out or fall out. I still do the protection of putting it on a pan just because I have had it where it's still seeped out before and can get all over your oven. So I definitely suggest if you're doing it in the oven, put it on a pan, and that will help to avoid a huge mess, which we don't want. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna pop these into the oven. I'm gonna shoot it back over to April, who has our mixture made. But we are gonna dive into touched a little bit on calories, and those are really great in terms of the calories that you get from them because they have lots of energy to help keep you fueled. And so why exactly do we need to make sure we're getting enough calories when we're breastfeeding?
So breastfeeding is the most metabolically active time of a woman's life, the time that she's lactating. So she needs to make sure to fuel that metabolism during breastfeeding. So breastfeeding moms will find that they're hungrier and that they need to eat a lot. So yeah.
So it's really important for us to make sure that we're eating enough throughout the day. And I know that can be tough when you're a new mom and you've got all these other things that you feel like you need to be doing. A great thing that I have always done that has helped me, you might have some other tips, April, is anytime my baby is eating, I try to have a snack. So I either, like if I have a little nursing station or chair, I feel like you naturally kind of find your space where you end up nursing more often in your house, especially in those early couple months. But you make sure that you've got your water cup next to you, and then you've got some good snacks. So trail mix is really great for some healthy fats and some extra energy. Also, any like bars that you can find. Even goldfish, if you need something like that. I think anything that will be tasty to you that will help to give you those extra calories.
Yeah, and that can also entertain any other children or pets that you have at home. So this is a great thing that toddlers can help with. They would probably have a great time with it, especially because you don't have to bake it, so there's nothing that's going to make them sick if they eat it. They could just lick their fingers and be fine.
Yes.
You could have baby carrots beside you, and you could have your toddler throw them for the dog. And then everybody's worn out, and you get a snack.
Yes, all perfect. Everyone's happy.
Yeah.
And I mentioned your water as well. So there's actually, isn't there a hormone, I believe, that's released that causes us to be thirstier when we are breastfeeding? Or did I just read that somewhere that wasn't true?
So, it is true that when we are breastfeeding, we are thirstier. Sometimes moms will nurse, and then they, as soon as they start nursing, they find that they're thirsty. So yeah, but definitely keeping up with food and water is important, but it's not going to drive necessarily milk production. One really important point to take away from this is that you don't have to have a perfect diet to breastfeed. You want to fuel yourself with good food and with water, but you can still make good milk if your diet's not perfect. The important thing is that you are nursing regularly, and that there aren't interventions coming up like in the hospital or doctor's offices or family or society that's interfering with breastfeeding, because milk is made on a supply and demand basis. So regardless of what your diet is like, the more you nurse, the more milk your body is going to make in most cases. There are cases where breastfeeding is not really able to work for some people. Regardless of what you're facing with breastfeeding or a loved one is facing, having them see a lactation consultant for help would be a really good idea.
Yes.
And all of these questions, I could go into so much more detail, but I don't have time to on this show. So if you want to email me or reach out to a lactation consultant, if you have more questions, please feel free to do that.
Yes, I worked with a lactation consultant. We had a lot of issues with my son when we first started, painful issues and latch issues and all the things. And when I reached out to a lactation consultant, it just truly helped me in so many ways to open my eyes. So I highly recommend reaching out to them, finding a resource. April is wonderful. And then also, a lot of times if you have health insurance, it actually has been covering lactation consultants. So all of my consultations have been totally free to me, thanks to health insurance. So you can go that route as well. But I hope that you've learned a lot today. I certainly have, and we'll see you guys next time on At the Table.